Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The rain fell in heavy sheets that evening, drenching the streets of Genoa city in a cold, relentless downpour. The thunder rolled through the skyline like a warning, echoing the turmoil building in Audra Charles's heart. Her world, once carefully controlled, polished, and full of ambition, had started to unravel faster than she could put the pieces back together. But nothing prepared her for the moment when her little girl's cry pierced through the storm and shattered the last fragments of her composure. That was when Audra burst into tears, clutching her daughter close as she rushed to find Noah Newman, her voice trembling with urgency and fear. Audra had been trying to keep things together ever since she and Noah had tentatively rebuilt their fragile connection. Their relationship had been rocky, full of passion, betrayal, and painful misunderstandings, but lately, it seemed they were finding a rhythm again. Noah's gentle nature had started to heal parts of Audra that she didn't even realize were still broken. He had been patient with her daughter too, forming a quiet bond with the little girl that warmed Audra's heart every time she watched them together. But on that fateful night, when her daughter suddenly collapsed in the living room, clutching her stomach and crying in pain, all the walls Audra had built to protect herself came crashing down. "Noah," she cried, her voice breaking as she ran into the other room where he was finishing a sketch for his art gallery. The sound of panic in her tone made Noah drop his pencil immediately. He rushed to her side, his eyes widening when he saw the child in Audra's arms, her face pale and glistening with sweat. "It's her stomach, she's burning up," Audra stammered, tears already spilling down her cheeks. Her breathing quickened as she tried to stay composed, but the fear was too much. For all the times she had faced ruthless business battles, manipulation, and heartbreak, nothing compared to the sheer terror of seeing her daughter in pain. Noah didn't hesitate. "We need to go now," he said firmly, grabbing his keys and wrapping a blanket around the little girl's trembling body. They raced to the car, rain pounding against the windshield as Noah's hands gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled determination. Audra sat in the back seat, holding her daughter close, whispering words of comfort through her sobs. "It's going to be okay, baby. Mommy's here, mommy's right here." But even as she said the words, her voice cracked, betraying the fear that haunted her every thought. The drive to Memorial Hospital felt endless. Every red light, every slow-moving car in front of them, every second that ticked by felt like an eternity. By the time they arrived, Audra was shaking so hard she could barely unbuckle her seatbelt. Noah leaped out first, shouting for help as he rushed toward the emergency entrance. Nurses and doctors immediately moved into action, ushering them inside. Audra's world became a blur of medical jargon, flashing lights, and the distant echo of monitors beeping in the background. Her temperature spiking. "Get the force started," one nurse called out, while another guided Audra to step back. But Audra couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. Watching her daughter being taken from her arms, hooked up to machines and surrounded by strangers, was unbearable. Her chest tightened, her legs felt weak, and she collapsed into a nearby chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Noah knelt beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "She's in good hands," he whispered, though his voice trembled too. "They'll help her. She's strong, Audra, just like you." Those words hit her harder than she expected. Strong. She had always prided herself on being strong, a survivor in a world that chewed people up and spit them out. But in that moment, she didn't feel strong at all. She felt helpless, fragile, and small. Every mistake she had ever made came flooding back to her, the lies, the manipulations, the choices that had driven people away. She thought of all the times she had chosen ambition over love, self-preservation over honesty, and how that path had left her so painfully alone. Now, as she sat trembling in a hospital corridor, watching her daughter fight through a mysterious illness, she realized that nothing in her career, nothing in her carefully curated image, mattered anymore. Hours passed like a cruel dream. The rain outside eased into a drizzle, but inside the hospital, the tension was suffocating. Noah stayed by her side the entire time, refusing to leave even when she told him to go rest. "You're not doing this alone," he said simply. That quiet strength, that steady, unwavering support, made Audra's tears flow even harder. She leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering, "I don't know what I'd do without you, Noah." He smiled faintly, brushing her hair away from her face. "You don't have to find out." When the doctor finally emerged from the treatment room, Audra's heart nearly stopped. She jumped to her feet, gripping Noah's arm for balance. "Is she okay? Please, tell me she's okay," she begged. The doctor, a kind-eyed woman in her 40s, gave a reassuring nod. "She's stable now," she said. "It looks like a severe case of food poisoning, possibly complicated by dehydration. We're running a few more tests, but she's responding well to fluids and medication." Audra's knees buckled in relief, and Noah caught her before she could fall. The flood of emotion, fear, exhaustion, and gratitude hit her all at once. She burst into tears again, burying her face in Noah's chest as he held her tight. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to truly break down. She didn't have to be the competent businesswoman, the strategist, the survivor. She was just a mother, terrified, vulnerable, and deeply in love with the child who meant more to her than anything else in the world. Later that night, when the chaos had quieted and her daughter was resting peacefully in a hospital bed, Audra sat by her side, holding her tiny hand. The soft hum of machines filled the room, and the fluorescent lights cast a pale glow over the sterile space. Noah stood near the window, watching the city lights flicker through the rain. It was a strangely peaceful moment after such a terrifying night. "I keep thinking about how close I came to losing her," Audra whispered, her voice barely audible. "If something had happened, if I hadn't found her in time," her words trailed off into another quiet sob. Noah walked over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did everything right, Audra," he said softly. "You saved her. You were there when she needed you the most." She looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. "I've made so many mistakes, Noah. I've lied to people, I've used people. I've been cruel when I didn't have to be. But when she got sick, all I could think about was how I might never get the chance to make things right, not just with her, but with everyone I've hurt." Noah crouched beside her, his gaze warm and sincere. "Maybe this is your chance," he said gently. "Maybe this is where everything starts to change." Audra stared at him for a long moment, her heart heavy with emotion. She reached out and took his hand, holding it tightly. "You really think I can change?" "I know you can," he replied. "Because I've already seen it. The woman who rushed her daughter to the hospital tonight, that's not the same woman who used to hide behind power and control. That's a mother who would do anything for the people she loves." His words pierced through her like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in what felt like forever, Audra allowed herself to hope. She turned back to look at her daughter, whose small chest rose and fell steadily under the blanket. The sight brought fresh tears to her eyes, not of fear this time, but of gratitude. As the night wore on, the hospital grew quiet. Nurses came and went, checking vitals and adjusting monitors, but Audra never left her daughter's side. She watched every movement, every breath, as if afraid that if she looked away, everything might vanish. Noah stayed too, curled up on the uncomfortable couch across the room. He refused to go home, even when Audra insisted. "I'll stay as long as it takes," he said. "You shouldn't have to face any of this alone." Sometime near dawn, when the first light began to creep through the blinds, Audra felt her daughter stir. "Mommy," the little girl whispered, her voice weak but steady. Audra's heart leapt, and she immediately leaned closer, brushing her hand over her daughter's forehead. "I'm right here, sweetheart," she said softly. "You scared me so much." Her daughter gave a small, tired smile. "I had a bad dream." Audra swallowed the lump in her throat. "It's okay now. Mommy's here. You're safe." Noah watched the exchange from his corner of the room, his eyes soft with emotion. He had seen Audra at her most ruthless, her most guarded, but this pure vulnerability and love, was something different. Something real. He realized then that whatever future lay ahead for them, this moment would define it. Because the woman in front of him wasn't just the ambitious, complicated Audra Charles, she was a mother fighting to do better, to love harder, and to make amends. As the morning sun spilled into the room, Audra finally let herself exhale. She looked at Noah and whispered, "Thank you, for everything." He smiled and squeezed her hand. "Always." For the first time in years, Audra didn't feel the need to run or hide behind her ambition. The fear that had once driven her seemed to fade with the night. What mattered now wasn't power, or success, or reputation, it was the fragile, beautiful bond of family. It was the man who refused to leave her side and the child whose heartbeat gave her purpose. Audra knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be questions, challenges, and maybe even heartbreak. But as she watched her daughter drift back to sleep, her tiny hand still clinging to hers, she made a silent promise: she would never take another moment for granted. The tears she had shed weren't just tears of fear, they were tears of transformation. And though she didn't know what tomorrow would bring, she knew this: she would face it with love, courage, and the unwavering strength of a mother who had learned what truly mattered. Morning sunlight streamed through the hospital window, painting soft gold streaks across the sterile white walls. Audra Charles sat in the chair beside her daughter's bed, clutching a lukewarm cup of coffee she'd forgotten to drink. Her eyes were heavy from exhaustion, but she refused to close them. Every time her daughter stirred, every faint sound from the monitors, sent her heart racing again. Noah Newman stood quietly by the doorway, his expression tender yet weary, watching the woman he'd once thought was untouchable now reduced to a mother terrified of losing her child. The night before had changed everything. For hours, they'd hovered in uncertainty, waiting for test results, hoping for good news. Though the doctor assured them it was probably just food poisoning, something about the way the medical team kept running tests unsettled Audra. She wasn't used to being powerless, she was used to having control, reading people, steering conversations. But now? She was just waiting, clinging to hope like it was the only thing keeping her alive. When the door finally opened and Dr. Rains stepped in, clipboard in hand, Audra's pulse quickened. The doctor's face was calm, but there was a subtle seriousness there that made Audra's stomach twist. "Ms. Charles," Dr. Rains began gently, "can we talk privately for a moment?" Audra immediately stood, her hands trembling as she set her coffee aside. Noah looked up sharply. "If it's about her daughter, I should stay," he said, his protective tone firm. The doctor hesitated, then nodded, allowing both of them to follow into the hallway. The corridor was quiet, save for the distant hum of machines and the soft squeak of nurses' shoes on the polished floor. Dr. Rains glanced down at her notes, then looked back up, her voice steady but compassionate. "Your daughter's condition is improving, which is good news," she began, "but we found something unusual in her blood work that we need to discuss." Audra felt the air leave her lungs. "Unusual? What kind of unusual?" The doctor hesitated. "Her white blood cell count is abnormal, not dangerously high, but inconsistent with what we'd expect from simple food poisoning. We're running additional tests, but it's possible there's an underlying condition that needs attention." "Have you noticed any unusual bruising, fatigue, or recurring fevers recently?" Audra's eyes widened as her mind replayed the past few weeks, her daughter sleeping longer, saying she was tired after school, a few faint bruises she thought were from playground tumbles. I thought she was just growing," Audra whispered. "Kids get tired, they bruise easily sometimes." Dr. Rains nodded sympathetically. "That's completely understandable. It's good you brought her in when you did. We'll know more once the lab results return." She gave Audra a reassuring smile. "Try not to worry too much just yet, we're being cautious, that's all." But that reassurance did little to ease Audra's mind. As soon as the doctor left, she leaned against the wall, her breathing shallow. "Noah," she murmured, "what if it's something serious?" "What if?" "Hey," Noah interrupted softly, taking her trembling hands in his. "Don't go there yet. We don't have answers. She's strong, just like her mother. You got her here in time, that's what matters." Tears filled Audra's eyes again, but this time they weren't just from fear, they were from the sheer weight of love and guilt. I should have noticed sooner, she said, her voice breaking. I was so focused on work, on keeping up appearances, on being in control. And I missed it. I missed all the signs. Noah's heart ached as he looked at her, the woman who had always seemed so sharp, so composed, now trembling like a fragile glass about to shatter. You didn't miss anything, he said firmly. You've done everything right. Don't torture yourself. But Audra shook her head. You don't understand, she whispered. Everything I've ever loved. I end up losing it. My parents, my career opportunities, relationships, and now my daughter. I can't lose her, Noah. I can't. Noah reached up and gently cupped her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. You're not going to lose her. Not this time. And you're not alone. The sincerity in his eyes broke through the last of her defenses. For a long moment, they stood there in silence, his thumb brushing away her tears, her breath catching as she tried to compose herself. The hallway faded away, all that existed was the two of them, bound together by fear, hope, and something deeper that neither could ignore anymore. Finally, Audra nodded, taking a deep breath. I need to be strong for her, she said softly. No more falling apart. Noah smiled faintly. Falling apart doesn't make you weak, Audra. It makes you human. They returned to the hospital room, where the little girl was now awake, her eyes fluttering open as sunlight danced across her face. Mommy, she whispered, her voice still hoarse. Audra rushed to her side immediately, sitting on the edge of the bed and stroking her hair. I'm here, sweetheart. How are you feeling? A little better, the girl murmured, her tiny hand reaching up to touch her mother's cheek. Don't cry, Mommy. Audra's lips quivered as she smiled through fresh tears. I'm not crying, baby. Mommy's just happy you're okay. Noah chuckled softly from behind them. You scared us, kiddo, he said gently. You've got quite the dramatic flair, just like your mom. The girl giggled weakly, and that sound, that fragile, sweet sound, lifted something heavy from Audra's heart. For a few precious minutes, the fear faded, replaced by love, laughter, and the quiet relief of knowing her daughter was awake and smiling again. But later that afternoon, the fragile peace was broken when Dr. Rains returned with the final results. Audra immediately stood, her hands trembling once more. Noah instinctively moved closer, bracing himself for whatever came next. The doctor's expression was calm, but her tone was serious. Ms. Charles, we've identified what's been causing your daughter's symptoms. It appears she has an autoimmune disorder. Her body's immune system is overreacting and attacking healthy cells. It's not life-threatening right now, but it will require careful monitoring and treatment. Audra blinked, stunned. Autoimmune disorder? The word sounded foreign, heavy on her tongue. Is she going to be okay? With proper care and medication, yes, Dr. Rains assured her. Many children live perfectly normal lives with this condition. But it's important to minimize stress and keep her immune system stable. Audra nodded slowly, absorbing every word, though her mind was spinning. Thank you, she whispered. When the doctor left, Audra sat back down heavily, covering her face with her hands. Noah watched her for a moment, then quietly sat beside her. It's not as bad as it could have been, he said softly. It's manageable. I know, Audra said, her voice muffled through her fingers. But still. I just want her to have a normal life. She's been through enough already, moving around, adjusting to new schools, dealing with all my chaos. Noah hesitated, then asked gently, does she know anything about her father? Audra froze. That was the one subject she had always avoided, the shadow from her past that she had buried deep. No, she said finally, her voice low. And I don't want her to. Not yet. Noah tilted his head, studying her. You've never told me either. Audra looked away, her jaw tightening. Because it's complicated. And painful. He was not someone I could depend on. He didn't even know I was pregnant when I left. Does he still not know? Audra's silence was answer enough. She stared at the floor, her thoughts swirling with old memories she'd tried to forget, the man's charming smile, his dangerous charisma, the lies that tore them apart. He had been a part of a life she'd long since escaped, one filled with risk and betrayal. But now, as she looked at her daughter lying in that hospital bed, the guilt clawed at her. Maybe he deserved to know. Maybe her daughter deserved to know. Noah must have sensed her inner turmoil because he said softly, "Whatever happened back then, you did what you thought was right. Don't punish yourself for that." Audra gave him a faint, tired smile. "You always know what to say." He shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe I just care too much." That made her pause. The air between them shifted again, warm, charged, intimate. They'd been here before, standing on the edge of something deeper but always stepping back out of fear or pride. But this time, something felt different. The crisis had stripped away their armor, leaving only the truth. When night fell again, and her daughter was finally asleep, Audra found herself sitting beside Noah in the quiet waiting area. The storm had passed outside, leaving the city soaked and glistening. For a long while, neither spoke. Then Audra whispered, "When she was born, I promised I'd never let anyone hurt her. But maybe the person I was